Hi everyone, today we're going to analyze a brilliant game played by current world champion Ding Liren, who is the first Chinese player to become a world chess champion. And this game really shows Ding in his element, playing very wild, complicated positions. And his opponent, even though he's not a very popular player, he's still a very strong player, a grandmaster, which is the highest title that one can get besides being a world champion. So let's get started with the game. Here white played the move d4, and after knight to f6, c4, and e6. Here white played the move knight to c3, one of the main ideas being to play the move e4. That's why here black prevented this idea with the move bishop to b4. Here many moves are possible, d5 is an alternative, but bishop to b4 is a fairly popular move which leads the game to the Nimzo-Indian defense. So here black is fighting to get good control of the e4 square. That's why black is willing to give a bishop for a knight on c3. And another advantage of the Nimzo-Indian defense is that black gets a very quick development. White played the move knight to f3, which even though is a very natural move, it is not the most common move. Here white has many other options, but I just want to briefly mention some ideas. Here the move e3 is a very common move. The idea is that here white is a bit more flexible with the development of the knight because the knight might develop to e2 in some lines. And queen to c2 is another very common alternative with the idea to capture on c3 whenever black captures the knight with the bishop. But in the game after knight to f3, here black castled, and here white played bishop to g5. So here we see a possible advantage of not playing the move e3, that now the bishop can develop to g5. And here black played the move c5. This is a very common idea in the Nimzo-Indian defense to counterattack the center. d5 is another common idea. And I just want to mention that b6 is also a general idea in the Nimzo-Indian to fianchetto the bishop to b7. So these are some of the main ideas that black might play in this position. c5 is very logical, putting pressure on the center. Here white played the move e3. And here black captured on e4. This position is already not that common. And here white captured with the queen, which is, at least in my view, definitely not the most natural move in the position. Taking on d4 was an alternative, and after d5, the position is fairly balanced. And here white played the move queen takes e4. And here we see that playing even slightly unorthodox moves against the very best players can sometimes backfire very quickly. Even though the move queen takes e4 is not strictly speaking a mistake, this will help Ding complicate the position fairly quickly. So here black played the move knight to c6, attacking the queen and developing. And after queen to d3, here black played the move h6, attacking the bishop. White continued with bishop to h4. Taking on f6 is not good because it will simply help black develop the queen. And after bishop to h4, black played the move d5, playing on the center. And here white played the move rook to d1, which is consistent with the idea of taking with the queen and trying to put pressure on the d file. Here taking on d5 was an alternative, but after pawn takes, even though black gets an isolated pawn, black has very quick development. Here white still has to castle, so the position is fairly balanced. And even here going for the d5 pawn is a very bad idea, because after bishop takes and queen takes, white can definitely not capture the pawn on d5. Even from a general point of view, black gets very quick development, but in this particular position after bishop takes, pawn takes, and queen takes, black is forking the king and the rook and winning material. So rook to d1 putting pressure on d5 makes a lot of sense, and here Ding, who is a stronger player, wanted to go for a fight and play the move g5. Here taking on c4 was a quiet alternative, but g5 will lead to a very sharp game after bishop to g3, and here black played the move knight to e4, putting more pressure against the knight on c3. Other moves were possible, but here Ding is trying to complicate the game as much as possible. Here white played the move knight to d2, eyeing the knight on e4. That's why Ding played the move knight to c5, attacking the queen, and after queen to c2, again Ding is going for the sharp option, play the move d4. In this position, taking on d4 would be very bad because after knight takes, black is the one moving forward. That's why here white played the very logical move knight to f3. This is one slight drawback of the move d4, that now the rook is pinning this pawn, so the position is already quite messy. This pawn on d4 is pinned, but this knight on c3 is also pinned. And here in this position, Ding played the move e5, which is a very deep move. But I just want to mention that the idea of sacrificing the queen by taking the knight, which, spoiler alert, is something that we see later in the game, here wouldn't work because after rook takes and pawn takes, giving a check, here after the move rook to d2, white gets all the pieces protecting each other, So one of the main ideas of the move e5 is to deflect this knight on f3 from the defense of the d2 square. Additionally, here there's a big threat of developing the queen, for example, to f6, and then plan to take the knight. So here playing a natural move like bishop to e2 wouldn't work, because after queen to f6, there's no way to deal with this very annoying pin on the knight. So after e5, we already get a very wild position. Here white has to take the pawn. In hindsight, taking with the bishop was probably a safer option. Here black might even take on e5, and then simply play rook to e8. Here black has the bishop pair and still better development. Because after knight takes e5, in addition to the fairly quiet rook to e8, here black has this very beautiful queen sacrifice after pawn takes and rook takes. The idea is not to take the rook because white would simply capture on c3, but to play this intermediate move, c takes b2, giving a check. And in this very wild position, white went for the greedy option and played the move king to e2, which, as we'll see, is not a very good continuation. But I just want to mention here that the move rook to d2 would have kept the game going. Here black can play rook to d8, planning to recapture on d2, and after knight to f3 we get this very messy position where black can play many different ideas like bishop to g4, planning to take on f3 and then capture on d2. This position is just very hard to assess correctly over the board, but here white seems to be holding. White would have to give the material back, taking on b2. Here black can take on f3 and then capture on d2, or even the move knight to e4 is also an interesting alternative, but white is keeping the balance in these lines. But instead of going back with the rook to d2, here white played the move king to e2, which is a very greedy move. But on the other hand, I don't wanna be too harsh on this move because the position is just extremely complicated, and maybe white wanted to suffer but try to keep his material advantage. But here after rook takes d8, now black will get the initiative even though black is materially down. Here black gets a rook and a knight for a queen, but black gets a lot of threats. And in this particular position, here white played the correct move. Queen takes b2, white is not in time to capture on c6 because after rook to d2, queen takes and bishop takes, there's just no way to prevent the promotion of this pawn. So white got rid of this very powerful pawn. So now black even lost an additional pawn. So black has to be very accurate in order to try to punish white. So here, even though we might see some crazy lines, basically all of the next moves that black is going to play are going to be forcing moves, either captures, checks, or attacking moves. But black has to be very quick because otherwise white might consolidate and convert his material advantage. So first, black played the move knight to a4, attacking the queen, and after queen to c2 and knight to c3, giving a check. Here white played the move king to f3, king to e1 just looks very ugly, getting under fire. Here black might simply continue with knight to e4, and then develop the bishop to f5. So king to f3 makes sense, and here in this position black played probably the nicest move of the game. Here h5, planning to go g4 was an idea, but here the move rook to d4 is a lot nicer. Now g4 is a big threat, and this rook cannot be captured because after knight takes, black get this fork, winning the queen. So here white has to do something about g4 and play the move h3, black continued with h5, again planning to go g4, black's moves have to be very concrete, otherwise white will sooner or later convert his material advantage. g4 is a big threat, checkmating white. Here white played the move bishop to h2, giving a square for the king, and after g4, king to g3, black played another very nice and forcing move, rook to d2, attacking the queen, and also eyeing this pawn f2. The rook cannot be captured because after knight to e4, we get another fork. So here white continued with queen to b3, and after knight to e4, now we see that this king is going for a walk that will not end nicely for white. And after king to h4, bishop to e7, again a very direct attacking move. Even though this sacrifices pawn h5, now this king will be exposed. Here black has some options like taking on f2, but the move king to g7 is a move that I really like, just preparing to bring a rook to h8 and deliver a checkmate. So white is still so underdeveloped that black can manage to play such a quiet move. So here white played the move bishop to f4, the game is already over with correct play for black, this should lead to a checkmate. Here black played the move bishop to f5, preparing to give a check with the rook, that's why bishop to h6 is a fairly interesting try, and after king to h7, white captured on b7. And with a king on h5 and so many pieces on the board, it is no surprise that black has more than one checkmate pattern. Here black played a very nice rook takes f2 with the idea to give a checkmate with the knight on g3. Now that the pawn f2 is removed, knight to g3 checkmate is a very nice threat. That's why white is no time to capture the rook. Here white played the move bishop to g5, and now black followed up with the original idea rook to h8, just planning to go king to g7 and giving a checkmate. Black tried knight takes f7, attacking the rook. The position again looks very crazy, but black simply plays forcing moves to checkmate white's king after bishop to g6, king takes, and knight to e5. Here white resigned. White doesn't have a lot of options. If white moves the king to h4, after king to g8, giving a check, knight takes, and bishop takes, we get this very pretty checkmate. Or after knight takes e5, bishop to f5, black forces a checkmate after king to h5, king to g7, bishop to h6, and rook takes. Again, this might look like complex lines, but with so many pieces and a king on h5, black can easily coordinate his pieces to give a checkmate. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you want to know more about how Ding Liren became the first Chinese player to become a world champion, you might want to check this video on the right.